Everyone told me the story was over once the inheritance was recovered. They were wrong. The court hearings ended. The investigations ended. The lawsuits ended. The bank accounts were traced. The properties were recovered. The truth was finally on record. But none of those things automatically healed what 20 years of lies had done to me. For most of my life, I believed my grandfather had chosen to leave me behind. I believed he had looked at everyone else in the family and decided they mattered more. No one said it directly, but that was the message I received year after year. Whenever I asked questions, I was told the same thing. Your grandfather didn't leave you anything. That was his decision. You need to accept it. Eventually, I stopped asking. I told myself it didn't matter. I focused on school, then work, then building a life for myself. But deep inside, there was always a wound I couldn't explain. A small voice that wondered why I wasn't enough. Why the man I admired most had apparently forgotten me. I carried that feeling into adulthood without realizing it. It influenced the way I saw myself, the way I approached relationships, the way I handled disappointment. I worked harder than everyone around me because I thought I had something to prove. I accepted less recognition than I deserved because I was used to being overlooked. I stayed quiet when people underestimated me because I had spent years believing my opinions didn't matter. Then, 20 years later, everything changed. One document, one letter, one conversation. That was all it took to destroy a lie that had controlled my life. The truth wasn't that my grandfather had forgotten me. The truth was the exact opposite. He had planned for me. He had protected me. He had believed in me. Other people had simply hidden that truth. For a long time after the legal battles ended, I found myself thinking about that realization. Not the money, not the property, not the financial recovery. Just that simple fact. He believed in me. I would sit in my apartment late at night and replay the recording from the estate hearing. The recording where I heard his voice again after so many years. The recording where he described me as hardworking and trustworthy. The recording where he explained why he created the trust. Every time I listened to it, I felt something inside me heal. Not because of what he left behind, because of what he thought about me. For 20 years, I thought I had been forgotten. Now I knew I had been remembered. And that changed everything. Healing didn't happen overnight. Some days I still felt angry. Sometimes I would think about birthdays, holidays, and family gatherings where everyone around me knew more than I did. I would remember conversations that suddenly made sense, moments where people exchanged strange looks, questions that were quickly dismissed, signs I ignored because I trusted the people around me. There were times when the betrayal felt fresh all over again. Because recovering an inheritance is one thing, recovering trust is something else entirely. Money can be returned. Property can be recovered. Documents can be restored. Time cannot. No court can give back 20 years. No judge can return the experiences that were stolen. No legal ruling can erase the pain of discovering that the people you trusted most helped create the lie. I had to accept that. And accepting it was one of the hardest parts of the entire journey. Eventually, I realized something important. Holding on to anger gave the people who betrayed me more power than they deserved. They had already taken enough from me. I wasn't going to give them my future too. So I began focusing on the things I could control. My life, my goals, my relationships, my future. Little by little, I stopped living in the past. I started creating new memories instead. One afternoon, several months after the final court ruling, I visited my grandfather's grave. The cemetery was quiet. The sky was clear. The kind of peaceful day that makes you slow down and think. I stood there holding flowers and looking at his name carved into the stone. For a long time, I didn't say anything. I simply stood there, remembering, reflecting, feeling emotions I had carried for years. Then I finally spoke. Everyone told me you left me nothing. My voice was barely above a whisper. I looked down at the flowers in my hands, but they were wrong. For the first time, those words didn't make me sad. They made me grateful, because the truth had finally been revealed. The burden I carried for most of my life was gone. I told him about everything, the investigation, the hidden trust, the forged paperwork, the secret accounts, the court hearings, the recovered inheritance, the consequences. I told him how difficult the journey had been. I told him how many times I almost gave up. And then I thanked him. Not for the money. Not for the property. For believing in me. For seeing something in me that I couldn't always see in myself. For trusting the person I would eventually become. When I left the cemetery that day, I felt lighter, not because the past had disappeared, because I finally understood it. Understanding creates a kind of peace that anger never can. As the years passed, life became simpler. The constant stress faded. The investigations became memories. The legal files were placed in storage. The headlines within the family slowly disappeared. People stopped talking about the scandal. But I never forgot the lessons. I decided to use part of the recovered inheritance to create something meaningful, something that reflected the values my grandfather believed in. I established a scholarship fund in his name. Nothing enormous, nothing designed to attract attention, just a simple program that helped hardworking young people pursue opportunities they otherwise might not have had. Every year, I received letters from students. Stories about goals. Dreams. Challenges. Achievements. Reading those letters reminded me of something important. The greatest legacy isn't money. It's belief. Belief in someone else's potential. Belief that they can achieve more than they imagine. Belief that their future matters. My grandfather gave me that gift, even though I didn't know it for most of my life. Now I wanted to pass it on. As for my parents, our relationship never fully recovered. Some people hear that and expect anger. The truth is more complicated. I don't hate them, but trust once broken is difficult to rebuild. We eventually reached a place of respectful distance. There were conversations, some apologies, some admissions, not enough to erase the past, but enough to allow us to move forward. I stopped waiting for perfect answers. I stopped waiting for complete explanations. I stopped expecting the kind of closure that only exists in movies. Real life is messier than that. Sometimes closure comes from accepting what happened rather than fully understanding why it happened. Once I accepted that, I found peace. The same was true for Uncle Richard. His actions carried significant consequences. Financially. Professionally. Personally. The life he built on hidden assets and deception eventually collapsed under the weight of the truth. I didn't celebrate that. Contrary to what many people think, real justice doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like sadness. Sometimes it feels like disappointment. Sometimes it feels like watching people destroy themselves through choices they never had to make. The satisfaction came from knowing the truth had been restored, not from watching someone suffer. Over time, I learned that forgiveness and accountability are not the same thing. You can forgive someone without removing consequences. You can move forward without pretending nothing happened. You can find peace without rewriting history. That understanding changed my life. People often ask me how I stayed calm throughout the investigation, how I avoided reacting emotionally. How I managed to keep going when every new discovery revealed another layer of betrayal. The answer is simple. I focused on evidence instead of emotion. Emotion changes. Facts remain. Every document told a story. Every bank record created a timeline. Every forged signature left a trail. Every hidden account created a record. The truth was always there. It was simply waiting to be discovered. The people who hid my inheritance believed time would protect them. They believed 20 years was enough to bury the truth forever. But the truth has a strange way of surviving. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes hidden beneath layers of lies, but it survives, and when it finally emerges, it changes everything. Today, when I look back on that chapter of my life, I no longer see a story about money. I see a story about identity. About discovering that the things people tell you about yourself aren't always true. About finding the courage to question a narrative that never felt right. About learning that patience can be stronger than anger. Evidence can be stronger than accusations, and truth can be stronger than deception. The inheritance mattered. The property mattered. The justice mattered. But none of those things were the greatest victory. The greatest victory was finally understanding who I was. Not the forgotten grandson. Not the unwanted heir. Not the person everyone told me I was. I was the person my grandfather believed in all along. And once I understood that, nobody could take it away from me. People thought my silence meant weakness. They thought patience meant surrender. They thought the truth could be hidden forever. What they didn't understand was that patience gave me time. Time to investigate, time to gather evidence, time to uncover the truth. And when the truth finally arrived, it accomplished something anger never could. It restored my past, protected my future. And reminded me that no lie, no matter how carefully hidden, can survive forever. Because the truth does not disappear. Sometimes it simply waits for the right moment to be found.